How dare you say that, Joanna, when you know you are the reason Agnes can't have children? My Aunt May's voice cut through the evening air, sharp and sudden. The laughter died instantly. My sister had just mocked me for being single and childless at her engagement dinner, and Aunt May couldn't hold back. Her fiancé turned to stare at me, confusion written across his face, then at Aunt May, demanding that she explain what she meant. That's when the secret I'd kept for 5 years was finally revealed, the one that could shatter her perfect night. Hi, I'm Agnes, a 28-year-old elementary school teacher in Portland, Oregon, where I spend my days shaping young minds. It's exhausting work, the kind that leaves you drained but somehow fulfilled. I got into teaching because I've always believed every child deserves someone who sees them, really sees them, even when the world looks away. Growing up in our parents' modest colonial in the suburbs, I was the responsible one. The daughter who brought home straight A's and helped with dinner without being asked. The one who read books on the porch, while Joanna, my younger sister by 3 years, was out chasing boys and breaking curfew. I'd watch her climb out the window and disappear into the night, wondering what it felt like to be that free. While Joanna was celebrated for every little thing, I was expected to quietly pick up the pieces and be mature for my age. I didn't complain. Not out loud. I loved Joanna, even when her sparkle left me feeling invisible. When I went to state college on a partial scholarship, I worked retail on weekends to make ends meet while our parents paid Joanna's way through a private arts program she dropped out of after 2 semesters. I graduated with honors and started teaching soon after. But family dinners were still about Joanna's latest adventure, her new boyfriend, her dreams of being an influencer, or the credit card debt she racked up that my parents quietly paid off. Growing up overlooked in my family, I knew the sting it left, and I vowed no child would feel that way on my watch. It was while volunteering at an after-school program that I became certain teaching was my calling. I had met a shy girl who never spoke. When I finally got her to open up, she drew me a picture of herself standing alone. I realized then I could make a difference as a teacher, but Joanna thought my career was boring. Proof I couldn't handle excitement. She had a habit of dismissing me. "So you babysit for a living now," she'd say at Christmas, her friends giggling along. I barely reacted because I loved her fiercely. She had a secret, one she had begged me to protect. A secret that eventually cost me my chance at motherhood. That was why I finally broke when she mocked me for being single and childless at her engagement party. The engagement party was held at Riverside Gardens, all manicured lawns and string lights that made the place feel like a fairy tale. Joanna had spared no expense, thanks to Daniel's family money. I arrived with Jason, my 5-year-old son, though no one here knew he was really Joanna's child. "You brought him?" Joanna hissed when she spotted us, her smile frozen in place. She wore a white satin dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "He wanted to celebrate with his aunt," I said evenly, holding Jason's hand tighter. Joanna's eyes flickered, panic, then annoyance, but she recovered fast, ruffling Jason's hair with forced warmth. "Of course. The more, the merrier." Daniel walked over, handsome in his tailored suit, hand extended. "You must be Agnes. Joanna's told me so much about you." The lie was so obvious, I almost laughed. Joanna had told him nothing that mattered. We sat near the back, far from the family table where my parents beamed beside Joanna. Aunt May, my mother's sister, waved us over. "Ridiculous seating arrangement," she muttered, kissing my cheek. "You should be up there." As waiters passed champagne and hors d'oeuvres, I watched Joanna glide from table to table, accepting congratulations like a queen. Daniel looked genuinely smitten, his hand on her back, his eyes never leaving her. He had no idea who she really was. Then came the speeches. Daniel's father talked about legacy and family. My father followed, voice thick with pride as he praised Joanna's spirit, how she'd finally found someone worthy of her light. Jason shifted beside me, bored and tired. I squeezed his hand and whispered that we'd leave soon. Joanna stood, glass raised, cheeks flushed. I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight, especially my family. Her gaze slid right past me, like I was part of the decor. Growing up wasn't always easy, but I always knew I was meant for something special. And now, with Daniel, I finally have everything I've ever wanted. The applause was thunderous. I felt happy for her. As the night wore on and the champagne flowed, Joanna grew louder, holding court at her table, laughing too hard, gestures wide and dramatic. Then, during a lull, she turned toward us. "Agnes," she called out, her voice carrying across the garden. "Come on, big sister, tell everyone about your exciting life." Heat crept up my neck. Jason looked up at me with worried eyes. I forced a smile. "Just teaching, Joanna. Same as always." She leaned forward, eyes glittering. "But what about your personal life? Any romance? Any excitement?" She turned to the guests. "My sister is so dedicated to her work, she's forgotten to have a life outside the classroom." Nervous laughter rippled through the crowd. Daniel frowned slightly, as if sensing his fiancée had crossed a line. "Joanna," Aunt May warned quietly. But Joanna was just getting started. She stood, swaying slightly. "No, really, I'm curious. Agnes, you're what, 28 now? Don't you think it's time? I mean, all that maternal energy you pour into other people's kids, don't you want your own?" The words hung in the air like poison. My throat tightened. Jason's small hand found mine under the table. "Tell us, Agnes." Joanna pressed, her voice syrupy with false concern. "Any man in your life yet? Or still single and childless?" The silence that followed was crushing. That's when Aunt May stood, her chair scraping loudly against the patio stones. Her face was flushed with fury. "How dare you say that, Joanna?" she said, her voice shaking. "When you know exactly why Agnes can't have children." Every head turned. Daniel's confusion was written across his face. My parents looked horrified. Joanna went pale. "Aunt May, don't," I whispered, but my voice was too small. Daniel stood slowly. "What are you talking about?" Aunt May's eyes were bright with tears and fury. "Your fiancé is standing here healthy and alive because 7 years ago, her sister gave her a kidney when she was dying of renal failure." Gasps erupted across the garden. Joanna's hand flew to her mouth. "The surgery," Aunt May went on, voice gaining strength, "left Agnes with complications, scar tissue, damage. The doctors said she might never carry a child." She turned on Joanna. "Agnes was 21. She gave up her future to save yours." I felt like I was underwater, sounds muffled and distant. Jason pressed against my side, frightened by the adult anger swirling around us. Daniel looked from Aunt May to me to Joanna, trying to piece it together. "Is this true?" I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up completely. My mother found her voice first, brittle and defensive. "May, this is not the time or place." "Then when?" Aunt May shot back. "When will it be the right time to stop pretending? To stop letting Joanna treat Agnes like garbage after everything she sacrificed?" Joanna was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. I didn't know it would. I never asked her to. "You never had to ask," I finally said, my voice barely a whisper. "You were dying. They said you had weeks, maybe months. Of course, I gave you my kidney." The words came out flat, emotionless, even though my heart was racing. I'd replayed that hospital room 1,000 times. The doctors explaining the risks. My parents' desperate faces. Joanna, yellow and swollen with toxins, begging me with her eyes. There had never been a choice, not really. But that's not even the worst part, is it, Joanna? Aunt May's voice cut through my memory. "Don't," Joanna pleaded, reaching toward her. But Aunt May was done protecting her. 5 years ago, Joanna showed up at Agnes's door in the middle of the night with a baby. Her baby. A child she'd hidden from everyone, conceived during some summer fling she was too ashamed to admit to. The crowd erupted in shocked whispers. Daniel's face went white. She left that baby on Agnes's doorstep with a note. Aunt May continued. Said she couldn't do it, couldn't be a mother, and asked Agnes to raise him. Every gaze turned to Jason, still clutching my hand. All eyes turned to Jason, still clutching my hand. No, Daniel breathed, staring at Joanna. No, you have a child? Joanna was shaking, tears streaming. I was so young, I was scared, I didn't know what to do. So you gave him to the sister whose ability to have children you'd already destroyed? Aunt May's voice was ice. I felt everyone's eyes on me. On Jason. This beautiful, bright boy who I'd fallen in love with the moment I held him, even as my heart broke that he was another piece of the future I'd lost. Agnes has raised him for 5 years, Aunt May said. Alone. Working full-time. While Joanna partied and pretended he didn't exist. My father stood, his face ashen. Joanna, is this true? You have a son? Joanna collapsed into her chair, sobbing. I couldn't tell you. You would have been so disappointed. So ashamed. Ashamed? I finally found my voice, and it came out stronger than I expected. You think they'd be ashamed of you having a child, but not of you abandoning him? I stood, Jason's hand still in mine. My legs felt like water, but I stayed upright. I didn't plan for any of this, I said, looking at the crowd of strangers and my own family, all staring. I didn't plan to give up my kidney. I didn't plan to lose my chance at pregnancy. I didn't plan to become a mother at 23. My voice cracked, but I pushed through. But I did it. All of it. Because that's what you do for family. You show up. You sacrifice. You love even when it costs you everything. I looked at Joanna, this sister I'd protected my whole life. And you know what the hardest part is? Not the surgery. Not the infertility. Not even the sleepless nights with a colicky baby while juggling student teaching. Tears burned down my cheeks. It's that you never once thanked me. Never acknowledged what I gave up. You just carried on like I was meant to disappear, so your life could stay easy. Like that was my role in this family. My mother was crying now. My father stared at the ground. And tonight, I continued, my voice breaking, you stood up here and mocked me. For being childless. When you know I'm raising your son. When you know why I can't have more. Daniel had backed away from Joanna, his face a mask of betrayal and confusion. How could you not tell me? I was going to, Joanna sobbed. I wanted us to be perfect first. Perfect. Daniel's laugh was bitter. You built our entire relationship on a lie. Please, Daniel, I love you. You don't even know what love means, he said quietly. He looked at me, then at Jason. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you've been carrying this alone. He walked away, past the string lights and the perfectly arranged flowers, leaving Joanna crying in her white dress. The guests began to disperse, whispering among themselves, the celebration dissolving into scandal. My parents finally approached, my mother reaching for me. Agnes, honey. I stepped back. Don't. Please don't. We didn't know, my father said, his voice thick. About the baby. About any of it. You didn't want to know, I said. You never asked why I suddenly moved to a bigger apartment. Why I worked 2 jobs for years. Why I stopped dating. I felt hollow. You were too busy protecting Joanna's image to see what it was costing me. That's not fair, my mother protested weakly. Fair. I laughed, the sound harsh. Nothing about this has been fair, Mom. But I'm done trying to make it okay. I'm done shrinking myself so Joanna can shine. Aunt May put her arm around my shoulders. Let's take Jason home. As we turned to leave, Joanna's voice stopped me. Agnes, please. I'm sorry. I was young and stupid and scared. I turned back to face her. She looked broken, mascara-stained and trembling. "I know you were," I said softly. "But you're not young anymore, Joanna. You're just selfish." I took Jason's hand and walked away from the ruins of my sister's perfect party. The drive home was quiet. Jason fell asleep in his car seat, exhausted from the emotional chaos. Aunt May followed us to my apartment, helping me carry Jason to his bed. "You did the right thing," she said as we stood in my small kitchen, the apartment that had become a home. "Speaking your truth." "Then why do I feel so awful?" I whispered. "Because you're good," she said, squeezing my hand. "Because even after everything, you still love her." The next morning, I woke to 17 missed calls. My parents, Joanna, even Daniel. I listened to one voicemail from my mother. "Agnes, please call us. Your father and I want to talk. We need to talk about Jason. About everything." I deleted it. Jason padded into my room, rubbing his eyes. "Mommy, are you sad?" I pulled him into my arms. "A little bit, baby. But I'll be okay." "Because you have me?" "Because I have you," I confirmed, kissing his forehead. We made pancakes, his favorite. He chattered about wanting to go to the park later, oblivious to the fact that his entire world had been exposed last night. To him, nothing had changed. I was still his mom. This was still his home. And that was enough. Over the next few weeks, the calls kept coming. My parents wanted to meet Jason, to be part of his life now that we know. Joanna sent long, rambling texts about therapy and making amends. Daniel messaged to say he'd broken off the engagement and wanted to help financially if Jason was his child. Turned out he wasn't. I ignored most of it. I was done carrying the weight of everyone else's guilt. Aunt May became a regular presence, taking Jason to the zoo, bringing groceries, just being there. "You don't have to do this alone anymore," she kept saying. But I'd been alone so long, I wasn't sure I knew how to be anything else. One evening, after Jason's bedtime, I sat in the quiet of my living room and finally let myself cry. Not for what I'd lost, my health, my fertility, my sister, but for what I'd quietly built in their absence. This beautiful, complicated life I'd pieced together from the wreckage of other people's choices. Jason wandered out, dragging his blanket. "Mommy, are those happy tears?" "Yes, honey. Happy tears this time." I lied. He climbed into my lap, too big for it now but fitting anyway. "I drew you a picture at school." He unfolded a paper. 2 stick figures holding hands. One tall, one small. A yellow sun overhead and a house with a red door. Our red door. At the top, in uneven kindergarten letters, it read, "My family." "It's perfect," I whispered, holding him close. And I realized it was true. This was my family. The one I was proud of. My phone buzzed. Another text from Joanna. "Can we talk? Please." I turned it off. Maybe someday I'd be ready. To listen, to forgive, to reopen old doors. But not today. Today I was going to be enough for myself and for this little boy who called me mom. Who drew pictures of just us because that's what family looked like to him. I'd given my sister life. Given her child a home. Given my parents the perfect daughter who never complained. Now it was time to give myself something. Permission to stop. To rest. To simply be Agnes, not anyone's savior or secret keeper. As Jason fell asleep in my arms, I looked at that drawing again. 2 figures, one sun, one home. It was more than enough. It was everything. To everyone who stayed with me through this story, thank you. If it moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in the hardest choices. Share your own moments of standing up for what's right in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Also subscribe for more stories like this. And if you think this story was wild, wait until you see what happens in the next video showing on your screen now. Click to enjoy.